Hello and welcome to episode 10. Last time we completed the job of writing out the IL code from our compiler. So this time we can do a bit of tidying up and then get to the point where we can run it by doing .NET build and .NET run from the command line. The first bit of tidying up we need to do is remove all the code that generates the C# version, as we're now generating the IL directly. So there's this method to remove. The methods down here that actually call .NET build. The methods that read in our template files. Just tidy up those references. And then finally on each of our instructions we just need to quickly go down and remove the emit C# method. I've got several classes in one file here. We should go back and fix that up as well in a minute. Which means decrease. So we don't need the method on our interface anymore. Couple more to do. Just make sure it still builds. It does, which is good. So back to decrease. We've got several instructions in one class here, so we should move them into their own files. That's fine. So the next thing, we should rename our project because it's no longer BF to C#. It's either BF to IL, or we just call it BF, I think. And yeah, we can remove our templates, so we don't need those anymore. Looks good. And then we can rename our namespaces as well. Okay, just make sure that still compiles, which it seems to. Okay, so the next thing we can do is tidy up our IL generator. So at the moment we've got a hard-coded path to system.console.dll, and it turns out that when you do .NET build, it can actually supply you with all the paths to all the DLLs in the framework. So we can change this now to actually be passed in this list of paths. So all we need to do then is just find our path. So it's going to be the path that ends with system.console.dll. Because we're past the full path, so we just need to find the one with our file name, and then we want to make that check case insensitive, and just do a quick check here to make sure we have the file. So obviously we now need to pass in these references. So we go back to our main program. And as I said, the place we can get the references from is they can be passed in as command line parameters. So at the moment we're taking a single parameter, which is the name of our source file. So what we want to do instead is we're going to take in. So our program's only going to allow us to have one source file. So we'll have a project file and a source file, because you don't really have the concept of functions or procedures, and there's no way of composing two different files together. So we will take in our folder, the path to the file to generate. Okay. So by convention, it'll be /o, and then all the references. Each of those will start with /r, and we assume our folder contains name.bf. Okay. So if we don't have any arguments, please apply the folder target and reference parameters. So should we do this? Yeah, we can probably just do a for loop over argument number. If args the argument is /o, we know that the next argument is going to be our target file. So increase the argument count by 1. Else, if it's /r, we know it's a reference. So we can just add the file name to our list of references. Otherwise, we don't have a type parameter, so it must be the, we call it the folder, so project folder. So obviously this code is not totally robust, because for example we could have 2 project folders passed in, or someone could pass us in and /o and then not follow it with another argument, in which case we'd have an error at this point. But this will probably do okay for the moment. So now we have our project folder, we can check we've got a source code file in there. Which, yep, so that's just going to be path combine, and we have project folder domain.bf. Don't need to create the folder anymore, we've already got it. Project name will be from the folder. No, it won't be from the intermediate file that we've given as the name. So the file we want to generate is that. Where do we set that at the moment? So we can now pass that in. So that replaces project folder. That's file to create. Quite a lot of changes here, hopefully we haven't broken anything. Okay, so the next thing I've done is I've created a a new folder called just BF without I haven't put any spaces in the path, which is going to make our life a bit simpler. So what I'm going to do now is build our DL out into this folder. So we can just set our output path in, I think I'd want. So that when I built it now, it's now created a bin, and there's our program, which is good. So now the next thing I've done is I've created a folder called sample, and in it I've dropped in our file we want to run. I've also created a simple project file. Open that with no. VS Code, yeah. I've created a simple project file that says we're generating an executable, and then two other files. We've got a build props and a build targets. The build prop file shows us our extension is .bf, and then finally the more interesting one is the build targets. So this says what we're going to do when we do a .NET build or .NET run. So we're going to run our bf.exe application, which is the thing we just built, which is the level above our folder in the bin folder and then down again. And we're going to pass in one argument, which is the path to this directory. Then we're going to pass in our intermediate assembly path, and then we're going to pass in all our references. So if I just open a new tab, cd into the sample folder. So that's all we have in that at the moment. And then we'll do .NET build. So we can see it's generated a bin and an object folder. We look in our bin folder. Debug. So then it's generated our echo.exe, so we run that. PowerShell, so we have to run it like that. A, B, C, D. And then it's echoed out our commands. So we can happily now build using .NET build. So that builds our project each time, and we can also run the .NET run, which will build and run our project. Like so. So next time we will look at adding support for a debugger from within VS Code.